On today's episode, we're going to be showing you guys our competition pork recipe, from the seasoning to the cook to preparing everything to put it in the box. We want to make sure that we have all of our timing down, because in our opinion, timing is the hardest thing when it comes to competition barbecue. So we showed you guys our competition trim just a few episodes back. I'll leave a link up here so you guys can watch that if you'd like. But for now, let's get right into the cook. What we're trying to do today is come up with a game plan that we can easily replicate in a few weeks when it comes time to competition. So one of the things that we did already do is we injected this. We used the Blues Hog pork marinade, and we also used Big Papa Smoker's pork prod. Those are the two mixtures that we put together with 10 ounces of water, and that's all that we injected this with. We injected this last night at 9 p.m., took it off this morning at 9 a.m., and we actually have been letting it set at room temperature for a few hours just to relax a little bit. So now we're going to go into seasoning, and I want you guys to know that we're always going to use our seasonings. Southern Belle, Southern Hospitality, and Southern Hospitality are the only three seasonings you're going to see us use when it comes to any competition. Our biggest obstacle today is going to be stopping all these flies from getting all over our beautiful pork, but you guys can see that we're starting with Southern Belle. I want a little bit of savory, I want that salt, I want that pepper, and then we're going to go right on top of that with a little bit of our Southern Hospitality. And the reason I want to go second is because I'm using a light layer here, a really light layer. I want that color to start popping through. I also want a little bit of that spiciness to come through, but I don't want to overdo it for anybody. We just want to make sure that it's a nice barbecue flavor on this pork today. And last but not least, I'm going to go heavier with my Southern Hospitality. That is going to bring, again, that beautiful red color, but the difference between this and hot is it has a little bit more of a smokier note to it. So overall, you're still going to get that great flavor, really sweet, nice tasting pork, but that's why I want this on top. Now, you might have noticed that I'm not actually seasoning on the backside, and you might be asking yourself, why is that? Well, realistically, this pork butt isn't perfect, and the reason it's not is because I don't have a full fat cap here, but typically I'm looking to get my pulled from right here, which I'm calling the bacon, or from somewhere in here in the tubes, and I've already seasoned that part, and I've already heavily injected it, so there's going to be plenty of flavor down in there. In the end, we'll also get this ready just to make sure that there's plenty of flavor on it, but that's exactly why we're not going to season the fat side. Now, you guys can see these flies are everywhere. Let's go ahead and hurry up and get this in the pit. I've got my gateway drum running right at 300 degrees, and I'm going to put my pork over the side that has the hot coals on it. So if you take a quick look inside of my drum, you can see there's a brisket on the other side. Again, don't mind that, but you'll see a water pan down there, and that is giving me my zones that have coals and then my zones that is protected. So I don't really like to call this two-zone because it's not quite two-zone, but I do want to get some of these drippings right over those coals to get that beautiful barbecue flavor, but I also want a side where I can move it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this every 30 minutes. So this will go from being on coals, and then it'll be over the water pan, back on coals, back on water pan. So we'll do that every 20 or 30 minutes. After an hour, we'll flip this over, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. It's been 30 minutes and it's time to rotate our pork butt. So we started directly over those coals, and now we're going to move directly over the water pan. Now's a good time to make sure that you're getting the right color on your pork butt. If you need to add a little bit more seasoning, you can still definitely do it at this point, and you're kind of running out of time to do that. You want to make sure all of your bark is setting around the same time. So let's get to rotating. If you guys are using drums, I do want you to look at something. So make sure that the smoke that's coming out of the stack is nice and clean. If it's getting really thick and white, then you probably have something going on in there. Maybe it's time to rotate to where it's right over the water, just to protect the meat, just to make sure it's not getting too hot on the inside. Okay, and rotating is pretty easy. I have some hand sabers under this, so I'm just gonna rotate real quick. And you guys could take a look at the pork, and you can see that it's looking really good. Like right here, it looks like everything is setting really nice. There's a couple of spots here that are kind of pooling a little bit, but it's not worrying me too much. It's only been on the smoke for around 30 minutes. Now we're just gonna let this go for another 30 on this side directly over the water, and we're just gonna keep rotating this. I won't bring you back every time, but I am gonna bring you back when it's time to flip it over. So at some point, we're gonna flip this over once we make sure that that bark is exactly where we want it. been just over an hour and it's finally time to flip our pork. So we've rotated twice, and after my second rotation, it wasn't quite where I want to be, but now that it's right over the coals, it got there a little bit quicker and it's time to flip. I want to show you what I'm looking for on the back side of this pork, that being the fat. And you guys can see that there's a beautiful red color on this pork, and if I tap it here, it's not coming off on my finger, and that's exactly where I want to be. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over now. And if you guys look, you'll see that that fat is turning nice and yellow. If you see a little bit of that bubbling layer, that's exactly what I want to see. So typically, I would want to see that over the whole fat cap, but like I told you guys earlier, this is not a perfect fat cap by any means. I would like this to cover the whole thing so I can get that pulled from that bacon, but we're working with what we've got, and this is so far looking absolutely great. Let's keep going. We're going to keep rotating every 20 or 30 minutes or so, and then we'll bring you guys back when it's time to wrap. It's been 2 hours on this cook, and now we want to check the pork because this is right on target of where we want to be. So I want to check it. I'm looking for color. I'm still looking for a little bit of that fat sizzle, and then we could put it in our wrap and we can just let it continue to cook until it's completely done. On the back side, you can see that the color is just looking so good. Right here, you see that fat that's sizzling. It's popping just a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and flip this over so we could look at it. And yeah, that's pretty much exactly where I want. So the little sizzling and the bubbling that I see right there, that's how I know that fat is rendering properly. So let's get this off and get it on the foil. We'll take a quick temp just to show everybody where we're at, and then we want to wrap this up. After 2 hours, our money muscle is exactly where we want it on the color, and you can see that we're sitting around 170 degrees, and I need this to be around 200 to 210 internal, just to make sure that everything is probe tender. So temperature is a guideline. I always look for probe tender. I'm not worried about it being exactly 200 or 210 or anything like that, but it is a good guideline to let us know that we're close. So in our wrap, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put some of our Blues Hog Champions blend. Just going to put that all over top. That's going to bring a nice red color. I'm also going to put half a stick of butter. And also something that I've been really bullish on is this apple soda. So we're going to put a little bit of this apple soda in here. So the reason I wrapped it like this is because now I know if I open this piece of foil and just kind of look right here, that's exactly where the money muscle is. So I'm just trying to keep, again, everything in mind to make when I'm coming to competition as easy as possible. So I'm always going to put the flap here over top, and I know that the money muscle is right here where there is no, I don't even know what to call this, but there's no end piece, right? So this is going to be the smooth side, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now this is going to go right back onto the smoker, and we're going to continuously be rotating. Just because it's wrapped, we're not going to stop rotating. This will rotate every 20 or 30 minutes until it's done. Now one of the things I want you to think about is when you're wrapping your meat in foil, typically you would think that it's going to speed the process up. That's what everybody's always said. Well, I've been doing a lot of cooking lately, and I've been doing a lot of competition cooking lately. I'm by no means a competitive cook, but I really want to do well, and I really do enjoy the sport. What I've been noticing is that when you wrap your meat in foil, instead of speeding it up, it actually pushes your meat back just a little bit. So for example, earlier, I wrapped my brisket in foil and it was at 167 when I wrapped it. It jumped back to 159, now it's coming back up. So that stall, it kind of does help push through the stall, but you'll see your temperatures go backwards instead of straight forward. And that's one of the things I'm keeping in my head, right? So my pulled pork, my money muscle was around 170. I'm assuming it's probably going to go back to around 165, 163 before it jumps up. So we're going to check this in 45 minutes and see where it's at. It's been 45 minutes. We've rotated the pork one time. Let's take it out and look at it together. Okay, let's go ahead and open up our pork. And like I told you guys, we're concentrating right on the money muscle. So I think you should be able to see it in this camera. I'm not sure if you can see it that well in that camera, but let's just take a quick temp of the money muscle. Oh yeah, it feels really tender. And it's temping out right at 200 degrees, 201. And I would say, yeah, 206, yeah. I would say that this is done. So my wife is going to go to the competition with me. I'm going to ask her to feel it too, see what she thinks. She won't be on camera or anything, but if it's time to pull it, we're going to show you what we're going to do with all these good juices. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try not to make a mess, and we're going to try and pour all of these juices into a fat separator. I've got my pork that feels really nice and soft, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut right here. and get that money muscle separated. So this right here is the money muscle. What I'm going to do in a second is I'm just going to put this into medallions. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and put the rest of my pork back in the foil over here and just wrap it up. And if it looks like there's any fat or anything that I want to take off, now is a good time to get it off. But I'll tell you what, the money muscle feels really, really nice. So now with our liquid, you can see where the fat is separated from the rest of that good stuff. We're just going to pour it all out, and I'll just throw my money muscle in there to relax for a second. Now I have my pork, and I'm going to start to shred it. So I'm going to go right under this fat cap, and I'm just going to remove. Oof, that is hot. Even with the hand savers, that is really hot. And I'm going to look for that pulled, right, that I'm looking for. And like I told you guys, that's right under the fat cap. That's why we want a full fat cap, but you can see that it kind of just, it's right under the fat. So when you inject, I do like to focus on this part here, and you definitely do not want to overdo this. So I'm just going to pull, and I'm going to put it in this juice. I'm just going to continuously let it rest and hang out in that juice. Trying really hard to find good pieces without damaging any of that pork. Right here, if we needed to, this right here is the tubes we were talking about earlier. You can see that that's some pulled meat as well, but I'm going to put it off to the side. Like I said, I want to concentrate on that pulled that's right under the fat. And you guys can see here, that's a good bit of pulled. That's exactly what I would want to turn into the box. Don't be alarmed that this isn't much. Do not forget, we're cooking more than one butt. If we need to, we could get pulled from the other butt as well, and we can make up a good box here. The last thing I want to do is get a little bit of sauce right on top of our money muscle and on top of our pulled. So once I get it in the pulled, I'm just going to kind of mix everything around a little bit just to make sure that everything is nice and incorporated. And if it's not quite time to turn anything in yet, we can just wrap this in foil and keep it in the Cambro. It'll stay warm for just a little bit. I'm going to brush this money muscle and make sure everything looks really nice. I could get some of that juice and put it right over top. And then this is going to go back onto the smoker for everything to tack up and for that sauce to glaze and look really, really nice. I'm also going to hit the top of this with some of our finishing powder. All this is Southern Belle, Southern Hospitality, and Southern Hospitality that's been ground up and into a powder form. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop some pellets right over the coals. So all I want is a little bit of smoke to come up, and I want that to kind of adhere to this money muscle. So we'll let this go for about 5 or so minutes until everything tacks up, and then we'll cut right into it. Okay, money muscle actually looks really amazing. So let's go ahead and get some slices here. I'm using an electric blade. I actually got some flack the other day for using an electric blade, but I'm just trying to make really straight and good cuts. Yeah, that feels super butter. So now while it's here, I'll go ahead and hit the top and the insides a little bit with a little bit of our mixture here, our little concoction. I don't want it to be too overwhelming, so I'm trying to go really light. This is a thin concoction, so it's kind of just going to run everywhere. Now, just for the sake of the video, I'm going to actually grab this and show it to you guys, but I would typically be using a spatula or something to pick this up to put it in the box. We'll also try putting together something that kind of looks the way that we're going to try and make our box. It's not going to look exactly the same because we don't have the 2 pork butts, but I would say that this looks and feels really good. Let's take a quick bite and then make this box. Last but not least, on our pulled, we're going to hit it with a little bit of our finishing dust, and then we're just going to paint it just a little bit, mix it around, and then we'll put it right in our box. And that's all there is to it on this competition pork, but you can see that it's pretty detailed, and we're a little bit tedious when we come to doing this pork butt, but we're really trying to get a great turnout, and we're trying to get that pork to look really good, which today I would say that I think we really nailed it. So we're going to be in Ingleside, Texas, doing the Battling Barbecue competition on the 22nd. I will be pretty heavily concentrating on what I'm doing in the competition, cooking and all that good stuff. But if any of you guys are around, come to the tent, say hello, grab a beer. I'll have some friends there. They can hang out with you a little bit. And once I get free, I would love to hang out. As always, I almost forgot to try this. My bad. Let's see how everything tastes. So I showed you guys a little bit earlier how good that money muscle looks, but let's just go ahead and take a quick bite. Yeah. Hopefully you guys could see how tender that is in the bite. So delicious. The marinade, the pork injection just tastes so good in there. Let me try and get another bite real quick. Yeah, hopefully you guys can see how tender that is because that's delicious. Not mushy at all. Just has such a great flavor. The Champions Blend by Blues Hog is just such a good barbecue sauce. We've been really liking it a lot, so that's what we're going to run on our pork when it comes to Ingleside. Real quick, let's take a bite of the pulled, and then we'll let you go. Hopefully you guys can see how delicious that pulled looks. Let's take a quick bite. Oh, yeah. So the thing that I love about that is there's definitely a difference in the texture on the two. So this has a little bit more of a bite, but that's good. I don't want it mush, and it really turns mushy if you overcook it. So I'd say for the cook today, we really did nail it. Our timing was good. Even though we finished a little earlier than I would have wanted to, it's okay. I could put the meat in the Cambro, and we're going to give ourselves plenty of time to get prepped in the end. So the money muscle was real nice, real juicy, real tender, and don't get me wrong, the same things came from the pulled, but it really just that different texture is exactly what I'm going for. Giving the judges 2 different bites, but some amazing pork flavor. I think we did really well. We'll see what the judges think come October 22nd. As always, we really appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.